Good. We
So,
good?
Yeah, you got it.
All right. So today we are here with a good friend, Zach Jackson. He attended the University of Louisville, Texas A&M. He was a first-round draft pick in 2004. He pitched in the major leagues for the Milwaukee Brewers and the Cleveland Indians, and in total played for 6 major league teams. Did I get that right, Zach?
that's accurate. That's accurate, man.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me, man. This is awesome.
All right, so we'll kind of start in the beginning, in college. So you transferred to powerhouse Texas A&M, and you just decided on your first outing ever to go out there and throw a no-hitter. Like, it was not a big deal. So for you, was that kind of a dream scenario to be at a new school with new fans and new teammates to kind of set the tone? And for you, did that help the year? And also as the team, how did you guys end up doing that?
That whole experience was pretty surreal, but that particular day, I was so nervous. I was just trying to, you just want to make a good impression, like you bust your tail and everything and work really, really hard in the, during the off season and stuff, and, with your teammates and just like gelling, molding together. But, you want to make a good impression. And I was given the ball the first day, and actually it was Valentine's Day, and it was like freezing down in Texas. It was like 40 degrees. George Bush Sr. threw out the first pitch. So won't forget that. But I honestly, this is God's honest truth, and I don't even think I've ever mentioned this, but I didn't even realize that I had thrown one. Because I was just, you're just locked in, you're in the zone, and you're just trying to go out there and, literally just one pitch at a time. And, but you're right though. It did, it really did. It set the tone for me, and, really just, taking my game to the next level. And, but more importantly, it helped out our team and everything. And, hopefully set the tone for that team. And, we went on to go a little bit further and played in the super regionals that year. So that was pretty special.
That's good stuff. So it's not every day that we get to talk to a first round draft pick. So to mention that, was there any pressure once you found out that you were getting drafted in the first round, or did you kind of have a chance to enjoy that?
First of all, when I was in high school, okay, we're going to take it back a few years and everything. I was a 50th round pick. I was the third to the last pick in the entire draft my senior year in high school. And literally GMs were drafting their nieces, not nephews, nieces. Okay. Not too many guys can say that they had a girl drafted in front of them, but that happened to me, and that just lit a fire under me. And I did. I'm probably most proud of doing that. Going from being a 50th round pick to a first rounder. And, it really, then that just comes with expectations, right? But, you can't get caught up in that. The only thing that you can focus on, because once you're drafted, it's to, when you're in college, it's just different phases of life, right? When you're in high school, you want to, if it's to make the varsity team, then that's what you want to do. If it's to start, then that's what you want to do. That's what you want to work for. If it's to, to get a college scholarship and play in college somewhere, then that's what you want to do. If it's to get drafted, that's what you know what I mean? So there's different phases. That whole year I worked my tail off to get drafted high, and I was a first round pick. And, after that, it was the next goal. It was to get to the big leagues. And it seemed like the impossible thing. No, that's where I tried to hit the gas, and I got out of the gates really well and did well to start off. So, you can't, I know it sounds cliche, but you can only control the things that you can control, right? Your work ethic, your effort that you put into it each day, the choices that you make on and off the field. And, for me, it was more go time to, I wanted to get to the big leagues then, it was great to say, hey, I was a first round pick, but shame on me if I just sit on that and that's it, right? You know, I mean, how many first rounders and high picks do we hear about that, you know, were complete busts? But
Yeah, definitely in baseball too. I mean, with the whole minor leagues, you know, you really can't just rely on that.
yeah,
So kind of
stacked against
pitching
them.
wise, what was there one thing that stuck out to you between college and pro ball that, you know, was a big difference to you when your first year or two in the minor leagues?
As far as like hitters or
Just in general, anything for you that stuck out, whether it be scouting or, you know, all the stuff that goes in behind the scenes, or
yeah,
routines, or
yeah.
throwing, or, you know.
You know, I mean, you had to find a routine and everything, but I mean, the players are there for a reason. You know what I mean? Like every level that you're at and everything, they're there for a reason. You know, they were the best player on their team at one point. You know, like you know, they were all there and they, you know, so I mean they could swing it. They came in with an approach, right? They're all strong. They can all hit the ball. They can all run fast. But we're all human too, and you know they have weaknesses too. You know, so that's where you had to be a student of the game, and that's where I tried to be a student and really pay attention as a pitcher, right? And I mean, I had teammates that were hitters also, obviously, clearly, but you know, it's just being a student of the game, and that's where it really like took your game to the next level. Because in college, you could, you know, you faced a team for 3 games, like a 3-game series, and then you never faced them ever again, right? But these guys, I mean, you're going to come up with them in professional baseball. So, you know, whenever as a pitcher you'd be charting in the stands, you'd see what their tendencies were, right? Like I would write down notes in the stands or in the dugout. You know, like I'd have a notebook with me and just be like, all right, hey, this hitter, he's stepping in the bucket because he's looking for that one pitch win, right, or inside, right. So what that tells me is, hey, I can go sinkers away and you know and be good, right. But hitters did the same thing. The best hitters did the same thing too. You have to have an approach, you know, like, hey, what's this, you know, ask the guy in front of you, what's this pitcher's tendencies, right? Hey, this guy just loves to sit on the outside. Whenever he comes with 2 strikes, guess what? He's bouncing a curveball or something, you know? So it's being a student of the game. That was probably like the biggest adjustment. I mean, you have to get into a routine playing literally every day, but I'd say just being a student of the game is probably the biggest thing.
So it took you 2 years, only 2 years, to get called up. So was that kind of a shock to you that it went so quick? Were you surprised, or were you knew you were doing so well that it was about to happen?
I mean, Johnny, you know, man. I mean, it's baseball is about being at the right place at the right time in the right situation. I mean, it is, you know. I mean, it's really like one of the only sports that you could be. I mean, you could have a Cy Young year, or you could be hitting 600 in the minor leagues. But if you got, you know, Jeter at shortstop in front of you, or Kershaw on you know what I mean? Like, so it's about opportunity. But that was my goal. My goal was to get there as fast as I could. And again, I say it humbly, I didn't have this, you know, 10-year Hall of Fame career in the big leagues, you know. I mean, you know, I'm very grateful and proud, you know, to say that I made it there for parts of 3 seasons. But, you know, like I told you, like I hit the gas whenever I got drafted. One thing I mean, I don't have much to toot my horn about, but you know, my first full season in pro ball and minor league baseball, I led all of the minor leagues in wins. I think I won 16 games, and I kind of got fast tracked. So I started in high A because I was a higher pick, and then I finished up. I finished up in Triple A in my first full season, and that's as a starting pitcher. I mean, you don't hear that too often. I'm really proud of that. But you know, in that off season, I got traded at the winter meetings to the Brewers as part of the Lyle Overbay trade, and then that next year I was with a new organization, and you know, you got to prove yourself again. You know, that's how I took it. But you know, that year, to answer your question, it was so my second full season, just starting out. I mean, I was, you know, I thought your optimism's always there, right? But there were a lot of injuries on with the Brewers, with Ben Sheets and Tomo Oka, and in the starting rotation, and and again, opportunity, right? There were other guys in front of me that were already on the 40-man roster. John, I don't want to get all the way into this and everything. I mean, you can explain this better than I can probably, but if you're not on the 40-man roster, or like you don't have to, after you're drafted, you don't have to be protected. I think for like 4 years, I think, or 3 years, where then they have to make a decision to put you on the 40-man roster or not. The only way to skip that is to force their hand and have them put you on there. But there were other guys there were other starting pitchers that were already on, that were in AAA, that were on the 40-man roster, and so they would get an opportunity first, and they did numerous times, and that was frustrating. Because how easy is it in baseball to say, "Woe is me," right? Like, oh well, this guy's getting a chance. What about me? What about why aren't they doing this? And then you throw a pity party, and you know what? It doesn't do any good for anybody. And we've all fallen into it. I have. If I could give any advice at all, don't fall into that. Like, hey, control the things that we can control, right? You can't control what management or upper management or your college or your high school or you can't do that, but you can control how hard you work, how hard you study, how hard you get after it in your efforts. So, my time came, and 2 or 3 guys that were on the 40-man went up, and they didn't do well. And you know what? I was still hitting the gas down in AAA, and I got that call, and I won't ever forget that. So, sorry, I'm getting long-winded here. That's where you got to tell me to shut up.
I could listen to you for hours. And again, this is why we do. I mean, these stories are invaluable, and a lot of kids don't, and even parents, they don't understand the business side of all those rules and stuff, where a minor leaguer's tearing it up. Oh, why don't they bring them up? Who cares? And then they have to look at it, the GM and everything on the other side. So this is invaluable. Whether it's right or wrong, that's just unfortunate.
Right.
How it is.
That's exactly right. I mean, higher picks are also going to get, and that's one thing that that was a blessing for me. And that's why I played so long, and played 13 years pro ball was because, I was a first round pick. And so, I can honestly say, I got more opportunities than other people. And, I had teammates that they had every reason, like to be still playing, when I was, right. And, or, even more so than me. I can say that with confidence, but, so it's just opportunity.
So you had mentioned earlier routine, and I think that's a big thing that, a lot of the guys from my little time in pro ball, that's really what pitchers hold on to, is that you play so many games, travel, like you have to have a routine. For you, your weekly routine when you were, a starter, did you have a specific routine? Did it change a lot? Can you give our pitchers some insight as maybe some suggestions or what worked for you throughout your career?
I'd like to hear your routine too there, Johnny Lou.
Well, honestly, the Marlins were huge on a lot of throwing, and that's where I started, like long toss. I wish I learned it 5 years earlier.
Yeah.
And some guys weren't into that, so that's why I'm curious what you kind of stuck up on.
I think the biggest adjustment, especially out of college, because in college you're going like once every 7 days, right? You're like every 7 days, and then like trying to get it down to like once every 5 days in pro ball, like it seems like it's almost impossible, right? You're like, oh my gosh, how's my arm? How's this thing going to recover? Like, am I going to be in, but no, just finding a routine. Everybody is different, and different doesn't necessarily mean good or bad, right? It's just different. Like I was blessed, like I had a rubber arm. I could throw all day, every day. The next day after I pitched, I felt sore, but I was still okay. You know, even in college at Louisville, I'd be like, you know, I'd pitch on Friday, and then I'd come back and start on Tuesday also. Like I just had a rubber arm, and you know, but everybody's different. That's the whole point. So as far as like routine, me personally, you know, what it looked like for me was if I pitched in a game tonight and I started, the next day was just playing catch, just tossing, just trying to get some of the soreness out and everything. That was your long run day, right? I mean, I don't know anybody that likes to run, but hey, you got to do what you got to do. Because I knew if I didn't do that, then I wasn't going to be ready and prepared for my next start. So, you know, I'd run for about 20, 25 minutes. Actually, let me take a step back. After my start, you know, you do your rotator cuff stuff. I think in pro ball, you can attest to that, Johnny. Is like, I mean, the rotator cuff like exercises is just invaluable. I mean, you know, just strengthening that up and everything. And I did that religiously. So, I mean, you know, it worked out. So, I mean, I never had any surgeries or anything like that. But so rotator cuff that night, next day, toss, and long run. Day 2 was a bullpen day, you know, stretching it out and doing a bullpen day. And then I got a really good lift in that day too. You know, that was just how I had to, like, just to flush the lactic acids out and everything. Day 3 was a long toss and then longer sprints type day, like you know, like half poles or 3/4 poles. But I would long toss. That was my stretch it out day. Day 4, you're playing catch again, and day 3 and 4, I always like to do flat ground. So again, it's just personal preference, but I would do that, and then, you know, playing catch the day before, and then day 5 it was go time again, you know. But you had to listen to your body also, right, and say, hey, am I more sore now, you know, this time around than last time? Hey, I better throw less, you know, a few less pitches in my bullpen, or don't stretch it out as far, right? Because the biggest goal is it's to be ready and be as, you know, close to 100% for, you know, when you get the ball for the game. So
That's awesome.
Sorry, I'm getting long-winded here, man.
No, that's great. It's really good. It's good to hear this stuff. So you mentioned before that you were traded. I believe you were traded 3 times, correct?
I was, yeah.
Okay. So kind of take us through that process of getting told you're getting traded, how you're feeling, and then obviously happening 3 times, not just once.
Yeah. Well, the first time it was for a box of Fungos. The second time I think it was for a washing machine, and then the third time, so they were different situations like each time. But the first time, like I mentioned, it was after my first full season, and it was at the winter meetings. I was, you know, I guess I was a prospect. I had a really, really good first year. And I got traded. I was with the Toronto Blue Jays, who drafted me, and the Milwaukee Brewers traded me. I was part of the Lyle Overbay trade. All these kids probably don't even remember who that is. It's like, he played with Babe Ruth or what? No, but so I got traded for him, and so that was kind of nice because I had time to. I was in the middle of my off season, right? So that happened in December, and you know, so I mean, it's business as usual, except instead of reporting to Dunedin, Florida, I was going out to Arizona for spring training, right? But a new organization, a new time to prove yourself, right? So, you know, that was an easier transition. The craziest one was probably when I was with the Brewers in 2008. Actually, I was playing here in Nashville in AAA, and literally in the middle of the game, it was like the 6th inning or something like that. My manager calls me down from the bullpen. I was like a swing man. I got switched from, you know, starting to relieving that year. Just didn't have a good year. Just, you know, I was trying to fix too much instead of staying within myself. But anyway, he said, hey, pack your bag, you just got traded, so go get your, head to the locker room and start packing up. I was like, what just happened? And that was part of the, it was me for CC Sabathia straight up. It wasn't that big of a deal. It was like really low key and stuff, but no. I was part of that trade. I was part of it. It was me, Michael Brantley, Matt Laporta was a really big prospect at that time. And I think there was another kid from High A that I wasn't too familiar with, but yeah, we all got traded over in that package deal with for CC Sabathia, and like you literally pack up where you're at, get all your stuff, you're packing up your apartment or your living place, and then they said, hey, you head up to where was I going? Buffalo, New York. So that's where their AAA was. So I went up to Buffalo, and I was in AAA there. And man, I mean, you talk about new guy coming in. I mean, I feel like a lot of us have like one point or another, and I'm trying to take it back to like where it's applicable for younger kids, but we've all our parents have moved before, or we switched to a different team, and you want to make a good impression. It's uncomfortable. It takes you outside your comfort zone, but it's an opportunity to show, hey, is this kid a clown? Is this guy bust his butt and like, a grinder? Is this guy, a competitor? Is this guy just give it in? You know what I mean? So just an opportunity like to really like show your teammates what you're all about, right? In a very short amount of time. So, because that happened when's the trade deadline? July. So, fortunately I had a terrible first half with the Brewers in AAA. It was just I just didn't have a good year. And so that's why they changed it to to relieving and stuff. And, I got over to Buffalo and AAA, and I went back to my roots and went back to like what I knew and tried to be me and, re-identify myself, I guess, get back to my roots and what I knew, what got me to that point. And after I think about 3 or 4 weeks, they called me up and I finished the season. I think that was one of my longest stretches, the last like three months of the season with the Indians. But that was a cool experience. And then the other time was I got traded in the offseason again, back to the Toronto Blue Jays. So, yeah.
Yeah, I
Pretty
mean,
cool.
that's such good information, because most people, they think of trading, they think it's an easy, like, oh, just it's like a video game, trade them. And you don't understand that these are people's lives. These are people's, everything about them that just up and go. That I know in spring training when they would cut people, you get back from the field and all your stuff's in a bag. Like there's no like, so.
I mean, the logistics of it, that was probably one of the hardest things to deal with, like as a ball player, is to really handle the roller coaster, like, cause it's an emotional roller coaster. Exactly. I mean, you just reminded me of it. It gave me anxiety. It's just like, you're in spring training and like, and especially like if you're in big league camp or something like that, like, it's going to happen, but just getting that tap on the shoulder, like, hey, Skip wants to see you in his office. Right. Then how, like going back down to AAA, or I'm going down to the minors, or and it happened way more than, I mean, I only made one team out of spring training, and that was 2009, and that was but I mean it is, I mean, just like the logistics and the semantics of it, if you get traded or released or whatever it might be, like it flips your world upside down. It really does. I mean, you got to pack up your whole house. You got to pack up your apartment. You got to pack up, you got to move your car, and you got to be at this place, in 2 days. And, oh, by the way, you're going to start in 4 days. You know what I mean? Like, it's a circus. It's a circus, but you just deal with it.
All right. All right, so I'm gonna put these two into one. This is some advice if you could give our high school or college guys that are listening. So you've had a lot of coaches over the years with, I'm sure, different levels, different teams. I even tell guys within an organization, there's different coach. There's so many different coaches and different advice. So how, two parts. How do you kind of differentiate to do what's best for you? And also, what's some advice you would give younger kids that you've learned over the years to kind of trust or stick with?
Man, great questions here. I think the most relatable thing is I was never, and John, I mean, you have better stuff than I did, John. Like you, like
you'll get my $20 in Venmo.
Yeah, right. Get out of here, man. I was left-handed, right? So I had that going for me. I was left-handed. I've been blessed with size. I was 6'4", 6'5", and I could put the ball where I wanted to. But I was never. I keep saying I. Like, I mean, I can only go from my own experience. So my experience is going to be different from yours, John. Different from yours. Like it's all going to be different. But I was never a guy that threw 100 miles an hour. I didn't throw 98. I didn't throw 95. Like, I was an 88 guy. I was 88 to 91, 92. I mean, hardest I ever threw was 94, and that was at Fenway, probably off the bat, but not a big deal. Minor details. But no, I mean, I was like an 88 to 90 guy, so it was not, I wasn't 100 miles an hour. I wasn't 98. So what got me to where, to the big leagues, and what got me, especially for a high school kid, college kid, what got me to, the highest level was just being coachable. Like, being coachable, like, geez, I mean, you surround yourself by good people, people you trust, people that you're trying to like get, it's the same collective goal. I promise you, like, that coach, they want to get you to the next level. They want to see you succeed, because then they feel good and that, that they're succeeding. But, that's a great question. Like, you have to be coachable, work hard, be coachable. That's what I did. Nobody was going to ever beat me, like my dad, like that's what, what we, how I was raised, our motto was run while the others walk, right? You see somebody jogging, beat them, right? You see somebody, like leaving the gym early, stay longer. Get, somebody getting there at 7, I'm going to get there a little bit earlier, right? But just being coachable, like being coachable, I think that's one of the biggest things. But to your second point, like it's, you have to know yourself. What you don't want to do, and this is what I did, and the best advice I could give you guys, is when somebody gives you advice, right? Or if you're going through a rut, or if you're doing A, B, or C, if you're doing great, or you're doing okay, or you're doing bad, right? You got to that point for a reason. Now, this might be later on in pro ball, but make adjustments. But what I did is I made too big of an adjustment sometimes, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean, John? Like, I'd reinvent the wheel, right? Instead, like, to do what this coach wanted me to do. And then that's where it gets counterproductive, right? So I think some of the best coaches that I had, especially, I mean, I remember at Texas A&M, he was one of my best coaches, Jim Lawler. But I think some of the best coaches, what they would do for me, is they would give 3 suggestions, right? 3 or 5 suggestions, small things, right? And then, if you just you can't take 3 or 4 or 5 things and try to like do all those things, right? Just take 1 or 2 things, take one thing and just work at that. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I think some of the best coaches, they'd have the same goal in mind, but they would word it 3 different ways, right? Like, hey, stay back. Hey, lead with your toe. Hey, you know what I mean? Like, you know, sorry, man. Again, I'm getting long-winded, man. You just being coachable is the biggest thing for young kids. You know, kids in high school, kids in college, be coachable. You know, your coach is there for a reason. Especially if you're in college, your coach is there for a reason. And you know what? If you think that it's not the right thing, or if you think it's completely, you know, not for you, then have a conversation. Or, I mean, reach out. I mean, you guys, all you guys have like the best resources in these guys. Like, how many guys can say that they, you know, are coached by somebody that played in pro ball, you know, played Division I baseball, played in pro ball, you know, like, utilize these guys, you know? Yeah, I told John too. I mean, reach out to me. I mean, I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it. I mean, just ask. You know, you're not going to know unless you ask. But the worst thing you can do is just be a know-it-all and say, "Oh, I got this. I'm doing this my way. I'm doing that." Like, there has to be logic and reasoning behind it.
It's good stuff. So, last one for me. So, in today's baseball now, there's more and more technology being incorporated with Rapsodo, hit tracks, all that stuff. Was there any of that when you were playing, and did you take advantage of any of that, or were you kind of you didn't want numbers, you kind of just wanted to focus on what you were doing?
You know, you had we didn't have. I mean, earlier on, I'm probably showing my age. I mean, I was drafted in 2004. That was 16 years ago. But I mean, you know, even later on in my career, like when I was with the Nationals in 2014, like that was starting to be, and it goes organization by organization too, like of doing like the, you know, the sabermetrics and all that and everything, and the spin rate and the, you know, I think, I mean, it's my own personal opinion, like the launch angle and all that. I think that's all just garbage. That's my personal. I'm sorry if you guys are. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's
pitchers.
just. I mean, just keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid. You know, like you know, later on, like they started doing like spin rate and everything. You know, but at the same time too, you can. I don't know. You can get a gauge off the hitter, right? You can see, hey, my ball's not taking off the way that I want it to, or I'm not getting it in. Like, I mean, knowing how many revolutions, you know, a second my ball's spinning on my breaking ball, you know, I mean, what's that going to do to help get this guy out? You know, like for me, you know, that might be like an off-season type thing, but you know, in season, I thought that was, for me, that personally, that wasn't too effective, just because, oh yeah, I got good news and bad news. You know, the good news is, you know, I had more revolutions on my breaking pitch, or you know, more than like the major league average. The bad news is, you know, we can't find the ball because it's 75 feet over the fence. So it's like, you know, it's like.
Would you do video? Would they break down video in season, or was that more?
Yes.
Off season?
Yes. I loved doing video. You know, especially at the higher levels, that was your scouting report too. So you watch hitters, you break them down. If I was ever fighting myself mechanically as a pitcher, you know, I'd go back and watch when you were lights out, you know, like when you had a great outing or something like that, right? Try to capture that on video. And then it's so silly, it's so crazy how quickly your brain can like go back to that, right? It's like visualization, right? You see it, you're like, oh, like how did I end up here, right? Let me get back to basics. Let me get back to being, you know, Zach Jackson or Jonathan Lewis, you know. So you know, so I mean, but we'd utilize film, especially for, you know, especially to fix a problem if we got out of our mechanics, or you know, the upcoming, you know, your upcoming opponent and stuff, and seeing what their tendencies were.
All right, this has been Awesome. You're great. So we're gonna finish. We get our little guys. They send us questions that they would love to hear. So we try to pick kind of interesting ones that aren't too childish. So the first one, and you don't have to take long, just whatever comes to your mind.
I'm not going to be long. We probably ran out of tape, man. Sorry.
No, this is amazing. Believe me, the parents, the kid, everyone loves this stuff. So as you were hitting with the Brewers in the major leagues, was there one or two pitchers who stood out as the hardest to hit against, or where you got in the box and it wasn't a comfortable feeling for you?
Every pitcher says this, I feel like, but I loved swinging it. I loved it.
I guess then, all right, let's change it to stuff-wise. Was there anyone that stood out to you that just stuff-wise was just like, wow? Like,
yeah. So I had the privilege of, when I got called up, I actually got called up and got put into Ben Sheets's spot, and he was our number one at the time. So it was always, and man, I haven't tried to think back to this right now or until now, but I always matched up, I felt like, against the other team's number one. So, it would be against Mike Schmidt. It would be against Zambrano twice. It would be, a lot of the number ones and everything. But I don't know. As a hitter, I'll go for stuff, but I have one quick story about hitting. My very first, I don't know if I told you this or you saw this, but my very first, so I got called up to the big leagues. My very first start was against the San Diego Padres at Miller Park, and we were facing the Padres, and I came up for my first at bat. The very first pitch that I ever saw in the big leagues came out of my shoes unglued, and Brian Giles goes back. I hit a home run. Brian Giles jumps up at the wall and brings it back. First pitch I ever saw. Went from Hall of Fame to 0 for 1 out of there. I was like, are you kidding me? It was off Chan-Ho Park. But sorry, glory days right there. Sorry.
No, he should have given you one. He could have let you have that one.
That's crazy.
Dude, stuff-wise, so in spring training, when I went to the Milwaukee Brewers, Mike Maddox, Greg Maddox's brother, was my pitching coach. He was my first big league pitching coach, and he had us like, hey, you're going to be throwing live BP day one, okay? And since it was to the National League, live BP was going to be pitchers in there, and you had to work on your bunting day one also. So not only are guys getting in there, they haven't faced a batter before or anything like until then, but they have to face, a pitcher but a pitcher that's getting their nose in there and trying to lay down a bunt. So we had Derek Turnbow. I don't know if that name sounds familiar. He threw about 99, and it was just fuel. And I remember, facing him the first time, not fun at all. Mitch Stetter, and I'm lefty too. Mitch Stetter was my teammate, a good buddy of mine. Look him up. He throws funky and across his, sidearm, like crossfires. That kid, look his thing. He struck out like combined. He struck out like 17 big league hitters like in a row or something, like consecutively, like over different outings. It was bananas. But he's a lefty that would go across his body. So I'm in spring training. I'm trying to lay down a bunt, and he's like throwing the ball, if you could picture it, like 3 feet behind my back, just to come back and around. It just made me look stupid. But, oh man. So that wasn't too fun. But stuff-wise, who's that he was rookie of the year for the Rangers. He had an absolute bazooka. Oh my goodness. If I wasn't trying to think of it, it'll come to me. But all these guys, they throw 100 miles an hour for fun nowadays. It's crazy.
All right, next one. Well, did you have a favorite stadium that you like to pitch in?
Yeah, whatever one I didn't give up a home run at, man. That was my jeez. So that not too many, not too many. No, I'd say growing up, I grew up in Pittsburgh, and one of the best experiences and memories that I have is I went there with the Brewers, and I got to pitch at PNC Park, and my whole family was there and everything. And I mean, unbiasedly, I think it's one of the most beautiful like backdrops. If the sun's out, if it's a nice day and it's not raining, I think it's one of the most beautiful parks in all the big leagues. But that was pretty special. That was pretty special to do that, and but it's tough to compare to that with like Wrigley Field and Boston and even New York and stuff. Just with the history and stuff there.
All right, and last one. With scouting reports and kind of going over a team, was there one lineup that you remember that was just? I mean, they're all good. It's major leagues, but was there one that ever stood out to you? Like, oh man, like there's no weaknesses, there's no anything.
I mean, they're all studs. I mean, they really are. I mean, I know that's not the answer you're looking for, but
it's not me. It's little Johnny, little 7-year-old Johnny.
Little 7-year-old Johnny. All right, let me see. I mean, when I was starting with the Indians, geez, the Red Sox, there wasn't an easy out. I mean, they had a lineup then that was just ridiculous. I mean, they had, you had Manny, Ortiz, Pedroia. I mean, Euclid at the time, I think, too. I mean, all these. I mean, there wasn't. But every team, I mean, every single team, I mean, they got to the big leagues for a reason, and it's just they were nasty. They were nasty. They were tough, But you got the Red Sox. The same could be said about the Yankees. The same could be said about the Tigers. Everybody. So as a pitcher in the big leagues, every single batter, Johnny, was a tough one. They were all legit. Because if you made a mistake, it didn't matter if you were, David Ortiz or if you were a kid that just got called up, you're backing up a base or asking for a new ball. So.
Yeah, and it's true. When I hear people say, "Oh, this guy sucks," like it bothers me because I never got close to that high, but I know how hard it is, and it's like, no, they don't suck. Like they were the SEC Player of the Year, like at one point in their life, so.
I mean, all of them did something right to get there,
Yeah, but
over and over again too.
But you are the man. This was the best. We appreciate your time, definitely.
Yes, thank you so much.
And thank you. I'm telling you, they can only hear so much from us, and to get these outside views and guys who have had these amazing experiences like yourself, I mean, we can't thank you enough.
Oh, I love it. I just hope they don't fall asleep for this thing, man.
No,
Sorry, you